Some brothers in arms are brothers in life. Today's guest is one of them. Brian Flom and I once wore the same uniform, stood the same watch, and shared the same terrible coffee at the chow hall. Now we're both serving in a different kind of uniform, one made of leadership, learning, and legacy. But Brian's story just doesn't live in memory. It lives in art. He's one of the featured veterans in President George W. Bush's book, Portrait of Courage, an honor reserved for those whose post-service journey embodies resiliency, purpose, and continued service. Currently shaping organizational learning for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Brian leads with integrity, empathy, and a people-first mission. He's someone I trust to speak the truth, even when it's hard, and to build others up in every space that he enters. So pour yourself a glass of Redbreast 12 and join us as we talk about duty, growth, and the brushstrokes of a life well led. All right. Like I said, I got Redbreast single pot still 12 years. I'm going to open that up. Brian, you said you had something else. Can I call you Brian? Because I know you used to be my first song. Is it okay if I call you Brian?
If you call me anything else, I'm just going to ignore you and assume you're talking to somebody else. So please do.
I know you made Sour Major, but you weren't my Sour Major. So I was just like, but yeah, what are you drinking over there? Why I open this bad boy up?
Yeah. So I've gotten a little head start of just opening it up because it takes me forever to get the plastic. But I've chosen some Penelope bourbon tonight, and hopefully we can see that in the light here. And I won't try and describe all the notes. I mean, if you read this here, it says it's a sweet buttercream with fresh apples, married with layers of nutmeg and allspice. And I don't even know what that means. I'm never one of those guys that there's a hint of almonds here, and you can taste the hibiscus as it leaves your tongue and goes down your throat. I'm like, okay, I could never figure that out. So, why did I choose this bottle? Because as I was and I'm sure we'll talk more about that later, but as I was transitioning from the military, a lot of conversations, a lot of advice was found, like giving and receiving over a bottle of bourbon, and specifically this Penelope bourbon with a lot of folks. If you think of what is bourbon, what is whiskey, it's really a vehicle to a conversation. I'm not one to come home and be like, man, I need to drink and I'm going to drink by myself. I don't know when the last time I've had a bourbon alone. It's with somebody, it's something social, and it's kind of like just an environment where we're gonna talk and just learn more about each other.
Totally agree, and that's what this whole podcast is about. Is having a glass and sharing some wisdom.
Yeah. I feel like this is an episode maybe of drunk history or something as we go down and we start.
It could be, depending on how deep we get here.
We'll see where this is. So, cheers to you.
Cheers to you. This is good. This Redbreast is good. Yeah, I've never been one like all these nodes and stuff and hints of this. I've been able to this is a little oaky maybe or something like that. But yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm a professional at this. I'm still on my bourbon and whiskey experimental journey.
Yeah.
As I go. So
the journey continues, right? And to your point, there's two things I know. Either I like it or it tastes like rocket fuel. And that's it. And if it's burning my throat and I can't feel that, and it makes me start to sweat, then I don't like it, right? And I'll pass it on to somebody else. So I kind of know what the proof areas are that I like. I'm not I don't want to be over 100 proof. That becomes a little bit strong for me. So I know that, and I stick with it, and yeah, it's good stuff.
That is awesome. So Brian, I invited you on this podcast. Obviously, we served together and stuff, and you're out now. You're retired. Tell us where the journey all began for you, what your upbringing was like, and where you are today.
Yeah. So I grew up in a little small town. I live in Pennsylvania now, and I grew up in a small town called Los Angeles. You may have heard of it before. It's just a little west of here, right? I never really knew what I wanted to do. I was probably like every kid, right? I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a chef. Who knows, right? It was all out there, and I never really found my calling until I was like 13 or 14 years old. And a lot of people don't know this story. And I got arrested for shoplifting. I was like an old Nintendo game. So I think that's ironic. Your business. And I was a young kid though. We weren't. But I got picked up for shoplifting, right? And I just remember though, the security guard of the store, he got me first, and they called the police to come get me. And And I just remember the way that that police officer from the Los Angeles Police Department treated me with dignity and respect and acknowledged like I was a human and I was a kid and I made a mistake. And it just like that created some type of respect for, like it just like increased my respect. I always had a respect for law enforcement, but just increased my respect. And I was like, I really want to be a police officer. So fast forward, I'm in my senior year of high school. I'm not a great student. I'm doing okay. I'm not a great student, but I have no interest in going to college after the Army. And my mom, it's and we joke about it, but she's like, "Well, when are you going to take the SATs? And what are you going to do for college?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't want to go to college." So it just kind of like an emotional outburst. I know she didn't really like mean it. Wasn't trying to like kick me out of the house, but she's like, "Well, why don't you just join the Army or something?" So I said, maybe I should. Maybe I'll do that. And I went to so I was a recruiter's dream. I went to school that day, and I called the recruiter and said, "Hey, I'd like to learn more about joining the Army. I want to be a police officer. What do you got?" And he's like, "Have we got something for you? And if you sign today, because they're running out, but we'll make you an MP, a military police officer." I'm like, I'm in, right? But I was only 17, so like my mom and had to come sign for me to for me to go through and actually enlist. And I said, I'll go join the Army. I'll be an MP for a little bit. My first duty station was in Heidelberg, Germany. I was still planning to get out, so I PCS to the National Training Center in Fort Irwin, California, where I was going to get out, and I started testing for LAPD, and all I had to do was finish my background check. And one day I was like, I kind of like this Army thing. It's pretty easy. Like if, and I think it applies to like life, show up at the right place, the right time, give it your best, and you're in the right uniform, at least for the Army, like you're going to be okay and you're going to be successful. I said, I'm going to keep doing this for a few years. 32 years later, I was like still doing it. Right. And for a long time. And I reached the highest level as a command sergeant major, not just from rank, but even from position. So I was the command sergeant major of the United States Army Criminal Investigation Division down in Quantico, Virginia. And then the Army had a great sense of humor, and they dual hatted me as the command sergeant major of the Army Corrections Command. So all the prisons and the Army were also under me, right? So I used to joke that I could provide continuity for people. Like we would investigate you and then we would incarcerate you. And like, here you go. That was your one stop.
I don't know any Bravos that liked corrections, but
Yeah, I don't know if it was like the corrections piece.
yeah.
But like to me, it's like always been like what's been my driving factor, motivator has been the people, right? It's about the people. And when you bring the people together and unite them, whether you like the mission or not, it's amazing. And even not just the people like the correctional guards or the special agents in CID, but even the people that were incarcerated, that were prisoners in the prison. Most of them were they just made bad choices, right? They weren't necessarily bad people. And I found that even with them, like treating them with dignity and respect, and it goes a long way to look at an inmate and say good morning, right? Like and it carries a lot, and it kind of, to me, it bought risk. It showed them that they were a human. It gave them some hope, and it made all the difference. So I'm getting ready to retire at about year 29. And I communicate. So I'm in the nominative program. I'm working for general officers, and I communicate to my career manager. I said, I think I'm going to retire now. I'm at the highest level I can get of an MP, so put my retirement packet in. Okay, no problem. A few months later, I get a phone call and says, the Sergeant Major of the Army has a lot of respect for you. We still think you're bringing, value to the Army. Are you interested in continuing to serve? I said, well, it depends. Like on what? And so they threw a couple of things out there. I interviewed for a couple of jobs that I didn't get selected for. Because at this level, you're interviewing with the general for these jobs, and then I get this email one day that says, "Hey, congratulations, you've been selected to interview as the command sergeant major of the United States Army War College in Carlisle Barracks, Pennsylvania." So I'm like, that sounds kind of cool. Why not? Let's go check that out. Something different, something a little bit more cerebral, requires you to think. And I had no idea what I was getting into when I got there. And candidly, that was like one of the hardest assignments I've ever had, was going to the Army War College, just because of the uniqueness of the environment. But once I got settled and figured out where can I bring value and how can I be valued, and contribute to the organization, I had an absolute blast and I loved it. Right. And so if you think about that assignment, it's not lost to me, the full circle. Here's a guy who I joined the Army because I didn't want to go to college. Get my undergrad degree thanks to the Army, get my graduate degree in leadership studies at University of Texas, El Paso, paid for by the Army, our taxpayer dollars. And then I wind up serving as the senior enlisted leader of the United States Army War College. So like the irony and that full circle isn't lost on me.
Yeah.
One day I get another phone call to interview for a position at the Pentagon. So take me from Carlisle back to the Pentagon. And I was one of only 5 people to be considered for this job out of the whole Army, right? So professionally, I
Yeah.
was absolutely honored. But when I did the interview, but when I got the phone call and they said, "Hey, Brian, you did great, all these platitudes, wonderful interview, you're a great sergeant major, yada, yada, but I didn't select you," I had this sigh of relief come across me. And I said,
Yeah.
"That's my sign," right?
Uh-huh.
So, fast forward like a month or two after that, and my wife and I have a photo of it somewhere in my pictures. My wife and I together hit submit on my retirement packet when we did it at 1 year out, both of us together.
Yeah.
And we made this pact, like there was no going back once we chose to retire. Because you see sometimes people like 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out, and I was all in or all out, and I knew like it was my time. It felt right. Let's do this right and be involved in the whole process and be advocates for our transition. And so here I am.
Yeah. So what fears did you have when you transitioned? Because I know I had a bunch.
Yeah.
So it's a very from knowing you're gonna have a guaranteed paycheck, right? To all the horror stories of your retirement pay not starting, of your VA disability claim getting denied or whatever, and then you're like, I've got to make money to provide for my family,
Right.
right? And then like all these backup systems that I have, I don't know if they're necessarily going to work on time, right?
Yeah.
And so trying to figure that out, how did that work for you?
Yeah. So I think the first fear was figuring out what am I going to wear. Like actually coming out of the Army and like it's real simple, right? Like it's
Yeah,
this uniform or that uniform. You know what shoes go with that. Like you know what hat you should wear and what to do and you got to shave and like it was easy. So like
yeah,
what am I going to wear? And even to this day, I know that when I come out of my room, dress for something, and if my wife says, "Is that what you're wearing?" Then I should probably go back and change because she doesn't really like it's kind of like a rhetorical question. So like my first fear was the systems were going to work itself. I knew retirement would come. We had a little bit buffer. This wasn't a surprise. Like nobody retires like tomorrow. Like a year in some instances 2 years. So you should prepare for that. Prepare financially. Like, if there's a little hiccup, should it take like when you get your pay withheld because of the audit and stuff. So I wasn't really worried about that financial aspect. So part of like I would say the two biggest fears I had was one figuring out what my community looks like because like so I look at retirement as the final PCS, right? Permanent change of station. But think about when you go from duty station to duty station, like you get a new community kind of issued to you, right? Like you all have this common, the shared bond. You get somebody, you keep a track with somebody who, like you served with a little while ago. Once in a while they surface, like, 18 years later, like in your case, right? But you keep,
yeah,
a little bit of tabs thanks to like social media and those platforms that we have. But when you retire, you don't get a new community issue to you, especially if you're not retiring in a community that you're from. So I'm not from Central Pennsylvania. I'm from California. Monica's from Germany. So finding a community and finding that together so we could stay connected, right? Like I always loved Monica, but it was important that I also liked her as we went through this transition process, and I think that's a little bit nuanced there. So
yeah,
finding that community was really important for me. And then finding a place where I was going to bring value but also be valued within that organization, right? And find that body of work. So that was, and then the rest of it will just kind of fall into place. Where am I going to live? Well, if you're working here, this is probably where you should live. And okay, now what do I do for my medical care? Well, based off my disability, so I do most of my care at the VA. Serves me very well. I maintain TRICARE for my wife and any type of secondary care that I need. So that all kind of fell into place here. And then because we don't live too far from Carlisle Barracks, still kind of maintain that we just stretched out that community a little bit better, right? And still maintain a great
yeah,
relationship with some of those folks back there. So like most of all, it's been like a really good transition. And I'm coming up on 2 years now, I think, since I retired. And it's been pretty good.
yeah. No. I think I transitioned fairly well getting out, but just like we've talked before, I do see veterans that get out that have not planned well, that are not prepared for the corporate world, that don't know what to wear to work. They don't have a Monica in their life, so to tell you. But yeah, what are you doing to help the community, or are you doing anything to help the community transition? As we have people that were under our leadership many moons ago, and they're getting ready to do the phase. I know I've had multiple veterans reach out to me help them with their resume, prepare for interviews and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah. So I'm really active and involved, and like I think one of the reasons why we join the military is and want to become leaders in the military is that servant leadership, right? We exist to kind of pay it forward, and whether it's leading soldiers in combat or back home. Our job is to prepare them for success, right? To take our place. And I kind of view that now. My job is to help veterans come into the community, right? Whether it's corporate world or whatever it is, and be their best selves. And a lot of the coaching I do, I will say I'm mostly focused on senior leaders, probably like lieutenant colonels, colonels, sergeants, majors. There's a couple generals even that I do some coaching for. And why is that? It's not because I'm type of like elitist. It's because that's what I identify with, right? Like everybody's transition from the military is important, and it's equally important, regardless of what your rank is, whether you're a private or a captain or you're a four-star general. But the transitions are different where you are in your life, right? So I do a lot of coaching with some with some nonprofits, but also just word of mouth. Like people will reach out, or I see them looking on LinkedIn and maybe putting something out there, and I'll send them a message and say, hey, if you want, I can help. And a lot of what I do is kind of figuring out like, what's your purpose? What's your value? What does success and happiness look like? And to me, like one of the things we knew was it wasn't found in dollar signs, right? Work-life
Yeah.
balance, quality of life, community, the opportunity, like have some time to volunteer, have some time to do stuff like this. Like that's what was important to me. Like, and that's what fills my cup. It's not really, we want to be compensated for the work we do. But like, I wasn't chasing any type of like dollar figure, right? Like I kind of knew what did I need to maintain a certain lifestyle and be happy with my wife and be able to travel and enjoy nice things that we worked hard for. I think we're there. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love to kind of connect. I'll never turn down a call. I'll make time, any kind of hours. I'm coaching a guy in Germany right now. Like I'll figure it out, right? Because I want to help them. I want them to be successful. And to me, part of it is about the veterans brand and the veterans name. And we see some people who go out there and they kind of perpetuate this broken veteran narrative, and it's not
Yeah.
helpful, right? It doesn't encourage others to want to serve, and it's not well received in the civilian world. So
Yeah, I don't think it does not serve us well as veterans when we have that broken. I don't think we have any other issues that anybody else doesn't have.
no,
That grows up society. Some of them are a little different, a little nuanced, specific due to the time we served. But yeah, I don't think we help ourselves in that aspect because we have valuable assets. And the thing that I talk to people about, I deal with a lot of sergeants, staff sergeants, sergeant first classes getting out and stuff like that. And being humble is one of the things that I always say. You're not entitled to a six-figure job. Everybody thinks they're getting out and getting a six-figure job. And I tell people all the time is that sometimes you got to take a step back to take a step forward. And not everybody's, unless you've got some IT specialty that's needed out there or whatever. Like for me, I went into loss prevention and I went in at the ground level, but like even with that, I promoted extremely quicker than other people just because of my background and my leadership skills and my attention to detail and all those. I think that corporate people notice those things right away from a veteran that's performing. And it makes your career path go much quicker than somebody
yeah.
else's that's just coming off the street.
Yeah, I hear that all the time, right? Like, I mean, I've only been in one job, but again, even in some of the coaching I do and partner with some of the organizations, they'll say like, to realize like the better like to have a little bit of humility, and you need some humble pie coming into the organization. And many people have said, but that veteran will promote much faster because, and I think that if you think about, just the foundation of being a soldier, we like really good at exercising this thing called disciplined initiative, right? So we understand the intent of the organization. We understand the mission. We understand the culture. We understand what we're trying to accomplish, and we just get it done. And we
Yeah.
know how to close on in and figure things out, and find creative ways. And I think that's where the veterans' advantage is. And in my experience is also that we're much more timely and punctual than some of our counterparts. Because I remember like some of my first meetings, and I work for this, for the state of Pennsylvania now. But some of my first meetings, I would show up 5 minutes early to the meeting, and it'd be on Teams, and I would think I'm in the wrong room, and I would close out and go back in like five more times because nobody would be there. So like the meeting started, the meeting's going to start at 9.
Yeah, no one's there till
No.
9.
The 9 o'clock meeting, all of a sudden it's like Hollywood Squares and people start popping up, and it's like, can you hear me? Is my mic on?
It really starts at 9:05.
Right, yeah, 9-ish is what.
9-ish. No, I totally understand that piece. But you got me all laughing. Got me off track. So you and me met. You were in the 64th. I was in the 401st. I don't know if you remember this, but the first time we really met, I believe, I could be wrong, was in the Palace. We met in the Palace over there. Because you were did you do the Bremer mission? Were you on that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where we actually first met. You guys came over and met with Pierre. You were an older staff sergeant. I was a young junior jammer.
I don't think
Hadn't even gone to school yet.
Older than you. I don't know if older staff sergeant would be.
You were older than me. You were long in the tooth. You were long in the tooth compared to me. So I got promoted to staff sergeant in November.
Yeah,
But that was like,
I don't even remember. So that would be 03 then, right?
yeah, that would have been in 03.
Yeah.
The first time we ever, and then you came over to the company in the second tour?
Yeah, about
you came over
about a quarter way through the second tour. I was like finishing my platoon sergeant time in the 64th.
Yeah.
And it's time to go. So I changed out. I came out of the platoon, passed that along, and I went to battalion headquarters for a few days. Right,
a few days.
Yeah, a few days, and then we'll leave him nameless, but some changes were made of and I remember Sergeant Major Bill Generali called me in and
I love that guy.
To the office, and he says, and in the voice, I need you to go over and be a platoon sergeant at 401st. I was like, well, I already did that. Again, like he wasn't really interested in like
yeah, he wasn't interested in none of your
yeah. There was no question.
It wasn't a
question.
Generali was crazy.
Yeah,
I tell a story about Generali telling me about how to break the combo on soldiers. Like he never really talked to me except for like one night he dropped like all this knowledge on me.
Yeah.
Out there in the smoking area in the battalion when I was part of 1st Platoon.
Yeah.
And then obviously there was other issues in that platoon before we got there. So I left there and went to back to the company. And then I ended up in that platoon, and then you became my platoon sergeant, which was awesome. It was a good learning experience for me. I was like, I know this guy.
Yeah.
He's a big burly dude.
Yeah.
I was like, and he rides Harleys.
That time.
Yeah. Have you stopped riding?
I did. I love to do I love to be physically active now. So like we're hiking all the time. Although that's been a while. We joined the what I call the pickleball cult. Like so, my wife and I started playing pickleball. Like kind of like wanted to be connected and find that community. And then really like picked up and we can talk about it. But picked up got into mountain biking.
Yeah.
And that became a pretty big thing for me. So got rid of the Harleys, got a mountain bike, and no looking back. And now, honestly, like if you think of like just the craziness of people on the roads, everybody's like driving on their phone, like mountain biking. I've never seen a bear on a cell phone texting before, like out in the woods or a deer or anything like that. And I think here people are always on their phones, right? They're so distracted. They're not paying attention. And to be on a motorcycle, I can't imagine.
No, but yeah, you were Punisher 7 back in the day. I remember you taught me a lot of lessons about leadership and humanity and forgiveness, a lot of things. Because I found it funny because generally I'd gone to do the Baton Death March when we had got back, and you left too. You went to S2, I think, at that time when we got back. Yeah, you went to battalion to S2. I went to do the Baton Death March. And then I came back, and I remember it was the funniest thing ever because you had left, and I'd gone they had me come to the platoon sergeant meeting because we didn't have a platoon sergeant. And they're like, hey, here's the new layout for the MTO because we switched from like 4 platoons to 3 platoons.
Yeah.
And everything. And they gave me the list, and I was like, hey, I'm not on this list. And they're like, what? And I'm like, dude, I'm not in the platoon. Like, what am I doing? They're like, look higher. Well, oh, I'm the platoon sergeant. I was like, this is how this works. All right. Like it was really good. But no, you definitely helped me along those lines. And then Yeah, and then you came back to the company when we went the third time to be our first sergeant, which that was an interesting that was an interesting experience when you became the first sergeant for like a day and a half or something.
Yeah.
Like 3 days. Yeah, it was like 3 days. And then you left me again. So you've been in this, like, we've been in this toxic relationship where you come and you go as you feel and as you please.
Playing with your emotions.
Yeah, playing with my emotions. I remember I was probably the biggest pain in your butt as a first sergeant. But the
But
talk talk about that incident that happened.
yeah, yeah,
That was, you had just got your seat as a first sergeant and everything, and you were going to dinner.
yep.
It was
Yeah, so October 7th is when I assumed responsibility of the 401st MP company there. 3 days later, on October the 10th of 2007, right? I think I was having a meeting with all the squad leaders and probably platoon sergeants. I imagine you were in that meeting as well when we were in a tent. So we were running a little bit behind for dinner. And then, Captain John Copeland was the company commander, which was actually pretty funny because he was here at the Army War College.
yeah.
Like we spent a year together here as well, while he was going through as a student, and got to see him and Claire and Nate, I think was their son.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
I
him,
used to call him hands.
yeah, very very
I
big.
used to call it because he has huge hands.
It does.
Like Michael Jordan palm your face
Yeah,
hands.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
he doesn't know I called him that till now, but
But now
yeah, just
and people also
yeah,
called him, I think, Gentleman John, right? Like later on,
Gentleman John. Yep,
right? Like calm, and
he
he's
was.
he's easy going. But so him and I are walking to dinner, and you remember, like, I remember hearing all of a sudden the alarm goes off and some explosions, and I'm like, that sounds kind of close. And then lights out. Like that's what I remember.
Yeah,
And kind of, and I remember coming to, and we're in a bunker, sirens are going off, people are screaming, right? Like you could tell that there was injured out there. And John Copeland, Captain Copeland at the time, is like taking off his shirt, and he's using it, like, and he's like holding it on my face because unbeknownst, like my head felt like I got hit with a baseball bat. Didn't know that I had taken shrapnel to the head, and broke my jaw and cut my throat on the inside, and and lodged in the back of my neck near my carotid artery. But I always tell people, like, in my journey, like, it's pretty easy to get blown up. You just got to be at the wrong place at the right time. So, like, if I think, like, my transition, like I call that, when I talk about mental wellness and some of, like, the trials and tribulations that I experienced, I refer to that day as the easy day, right? Because you're in the wrong spot, the rocket lands, your lights out. Fortunately, for me, I was one of the lucky ones whose lights, came back on. There were people that day, who didn't. Like, so if you recall, and I eventually get medevaced out, and I go to Baghdad, and and into the hospital there, and eventually I just keep, and then I wind up into Balad, Iraq, and wind up into launch tool, and like in my mind, I'm like, I got to get back. Like, I'm in my dream job. I'm a first sergeant, and I'm going the wrong direction, right? Like, that's not how you get, there. And I remember, like General Petraeus presented me my Purple Heart in the hospital, and then if you remember, General Phillips, right, an MP general, he came to see me in the hospital, and I was like, hey sir, I'm going back. Like, I need to go back. But I keep getting moved the wrong way. And I'm like, this is not how I get back. And I remember talking to the
yeah,
sergeant major and telling him, like, don't give up my job. Like, I'm coming back. Right. And he's like,
yeah,
you're in San Antonio right now. Like, I know, but I'm coming back. Like, just give me some time. And I spent about 8 weeks, recovering the best I could, and doing my best to convince people that I was good enough to go back. And, like, about 8 weeks later, after recovering down at Brooke Army Medical Center, I was back in combat with with the team. And if I think about that, physically, I probably wasn't ready. My jaw was broken. I had to stuff food into my mouth. It was painful to try and open up and eat anything. But for, like, if I look at that now, I can't imagine mentally and what my mind would have been like had I not gone back and finished that mission with the company.
In hindsight, do you regret it going back so soon, or do you think that you don't regret it?
No, I think in hindsight, like, I don't think there's anything I regret. Maybe
Okay.
if we could do things differently, perhaps we would have taken a different path. I mean, so if I look at
Yeah,
that whole tour there, I put a lot on me and I put even more on my family. And candidly, I'd probably say selfishly, right? And, and probably
Yeah.
for like a long time had an impact because if like I deployed originally in March of 2007 with the battalion headquarters, right? So
Yeah.
you came
So
with
you went early. Yeah.
about 3 months, a little bit later. So I get called into, the sergeant major's office and he says, "Hey, like we want to make you a first sergeant of the first FD company." And I said, "Great." He said, "But you're going to have to do 3 more months, 3 extra months." So my 12-month tour turned into a 15-month tour. And so I called my wife up and I said, "Hey, like they just offered me a company. I'm like, my dream job, right? I get to be a company first sergeant, like in
Yeah.
combat. Like this is exciting. What do you think?" And she's like, "You already know the answer. Why are you even calling me?" I was like, "Yeah, but I feel like I have to ask you, right? I gotta make me feel better. Just say yes or something."
Yeah.
like that. But we knew, and so I went in and and I said to the sergeant major, "Hey, I'm in. Like I want to be a first sergeant." But then the surge happened, right? So everybody who was on 12-month tour got extended to 15 months. So if you look at like my total time in combat, March of 2007 to August when we came home, August of 2008, that's a really long time, right?
Yeah.
And it was tough, and I came back, and it was crazy. It's like you think you want to be home, and I wanted to go back to combat, right? I'm like to me, that's what I knew. That's where I was comfortable.
Yeah.
It was absolutely dangerous. We were in a pretty crappy, some really bad areas, right?
Yeah.
And lost some good folks over there. But I wanted to be back there for some reason because I don't know, like I was having a hard time adjusting to the community. We had no shortage of like soldier discipline issues going on. And it was nonstop. There was leadership changes at the battalion that I was trying to respond to. And it became a lot. And I'm like, man, if I could just be back in combat, like my life would be pretty easy. So that was like that was a super adjustment. And that was probably what I call like my hardest period. Right. So I've heard like getting
Mhm.
up as the easy day. Like my hardest day is when just all that came kind of like collapsing in, and just my mind wasn't in a good place. So if I think of hindsight 2020, would I have taken that, like knowing what I knew after, would I still have said like, yeah, I want to be the first arm? Probably, but like once like we always say like, oh, I wish I shoulda, coulda, woulda, and just my mind was a little bit different. Like maybe not, but no regrets.
No regrets. That's good. Yeah, no, I get that. And so the physical part we understand took a little longer to heal and everything. How do you think your recovery has been through all the war? You know what I'm saying? Because I remember I went to the first one, we saw stuff. We went to the second one. I remember when we came back, mental health was like a big deal. And you were a big advocate of, like, hey guys, go get checked out, make sure. And we did that, and we motivated our troops that were having trouble dealing with it as senior, as leaders, as squad leaders, like, hey, get the help that you need and stuff like that. When we were really in a culture of like mental health wasn't a priority. It was the mission. Like the army was still in that shift phase of taking care of mental health. And so I felt that was really, really brave of you doing that. And then how do you think that your recovery mentally went after that? Like after it's all done, I know you came back, you've been the first time, you did a fabulous job. Obviously, they promoted you a bunch more times. So, but like mentally, how did you deal with it, and how was that journey or that path?
I'd say I'm still on that path, right, and still on that journey. And I like to tell people now because of my um ability to kind of understand this. Like, most days I have post traumatic stress, PTS. Some days I have PTSD, right? Like, and it's that disorder. So if you remember, so we started doing like a lot of running, right? And like while we're
Yeah,
back still and training for the San Antonio Rock and Roll Marathon. Rudy Sandoval, who I still keep in touch with, he's got
good old Rudy.
he's got a lot more gray in his beard than you do.
He's
Um,
got a lot less of this too. I've seen some
yeah,
I've seen some pictures of him.
he's the same. He's great, and he came out to my retirement, and we still, keep in touch with each other. He's
No,
fantastic.
he's a good cat.
But so we trained up and we run this inaugural marathon. What I didn't realize what like that physical activity was doing for me and for my mind, right? So we come back from Iraq, we take our leave, but I had like this core group of folks that are showing up on like Saturday mornings, and we're running to like other cities because that's how long the training runs were, right? And we're going to breakfast, and like our nipples are chafing, and all this stuff, and got like fire crotch, like, and all these like terrible things, and you're getting up real early to do it because it's hotter than the surface of the sun. So we get through this marathon, and that's where I think if I look back, like where I went off that cliff, because life was like where I had that community, I had that connection, I had that purpose. We were waking up every day.
Hmm.
I was accountable to other people, just like when we were in combat, right? But when that marathon got done, we all had our celebratory beer. We hobbled back to our cars and went about our ways, and kind of, I don't know, lost something there. I lost what that physical activity was doing for my mind, and that's where I think I went down. And to your earlier comment of, the Army's dealing with like really high suicide rates at the time. That's very reactionary. They're trying to like bring a surge of just contractors and mental health professionals, and like I started going to see some of them. Some were helpful, most were not. I just wasn't finding that connection. They were giving me more medication than you could imagine, right? And they're like, oh, take
Hmm.
this to help you sleep. And I remember one where they gave me some meds and said, this will help you to sleep, but you should know that one of the side effects are like sleepwalking. So you may find yourself like in the store at night, in your pajamas. So like the next day I went to Walmart, I'm like, everybody's on that medicine, like they're all in their pajamas. But it just, and then one time I really wanted sleep, and I took too many, pills to sleep, not trying to do like harm myself. And I
Yeah.
didn't wake up for work the next day.
All right.
And I'm very timely, I'm very punctual, and everything. And I get a call like around 11. It's like, are you coming in? I'm like, yeah, why? Well, it's about 11, and you were supposed to be here for physical fitness training at like 6:30, and you're not. And
Yeah.
that was like the last time I took a pill, and I remember my wife saying to me, "You've always enjoyed mountain biking. Why don't you try doing that again?" And little did she know like the monster she was creating. So like we went out like that weekend and bought mountain bikes, and just kind of found this freedom of being out in the woods, physical activity, breathing hard, and that's like led me to so many other opportunities that I never would have imagined because of mountain biking, but really about just that physical activity more so than the mountain bike.
No. And so that's what made you get off any kind of medication or anything for, because I felt the same way. I've had my struggles and stuff like that, but like the one thing that I seen so many people deal with the pill addiction and stuff like that, that like I've always been a big like I won't take anything unless it's like something that like I have to take. There's got to be another remedy for it. Is it physical activity? Is it meditation? There's got to be an alternative. We didn't have all these medications, and people were perfectly fine
Right.
for
Right.
centuries. People dealt with it, but yeah, and I feel your pain on the psychologists and stuff. I've gone through the VA, and like here in Chicago, I go to the VA here, and like when I was going through them, it was like every 12 months you're getting a new person, because it's a schoolhouse, and you're like, I don't want to tell my story again.
Right. Right.
Like, I got it. You're reading it in the paper, but it's not the same as what it actually is. And so that's very frustrating for a lot of veterans,
Yeah. Yeah.
is
Yeah.
having to re-explain yourself.
Yeah, and I just signed up again, right? Like a couple weeks ago, started going because so part of it is, if I look at this is, what am I doing for me? And part of what I'm doing for me is sharing my story and trying to, reduce, eliminate really if I can that stigma. It's okay. It's not a sign of weakness to go get some help and go talk to somebody, whatever that is, right? Like whatever that healthy outlet is. And it's probably not found, as we sit here and drink, whiskey, like put it in a healthy, but it's probably not found at the bottom of a, pill bottle, or at the bottom of a whiskey bottle on, and doing some binge drinking. Like what are those healthy habits and those healthy ways that we can process the challenges that we've experienced. So I am always like encouraging, and I will tell my story, and the things I've gone through, and like, and even some of those crucibles, in my mind, I'll tell that to anybody. But, I was, to your point, I was at the VA, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and kind of part of my intake, and, at the end she says, all right, we got these options here. Like you can do this, you can do this. And then she's like, I feel like you're going to say no, but there's also medication we can offer you. And I'm like, you're right. I'm going to say no.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not
I'm not
taking
interested
this.
in,
Yeah.
and like you don't even
Yeah.
tell me like what the medication. It didn't matter, right? I don't need that, right? And perhaps some people do. I'm not trying to discount it. It all serves its purposes, but I know where I am, that's not what I need, and I kind of know what I need, and
Yeah.
like when my wife tells me that I should go ride my bike, like I know what she means by that, right? It's not like that she wants me to go ride my ride my bicycle. Like, I'm
Need
not
to clear the head.
right. Like I need like I should probably eat a
Yeah.
Snickers bar because I'm in like Betty White or whatever it is, and I need to go ride my bike.
No, I agree. My wife tells me the same thing all the time. Is like, hey, you need to go do something. Get out of here. Even though you got rid of the Harley, and I still have one. I'm a little disappointed in that. So tell me about the picture behind you.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I mentioned mountain biking, right? And I kind of
Yeah.
talked about how my wife kind of created this mountain bike monster. And I've always loved riding a bike. And if you think about like when you were a kid, right, and you're on a bicycle, and you ride 2 miles, across town or something like to grandma's house or whatever it was. Like it felt good. Like it was like, oh, freedom, you're like Mel
Yeah.
Gibson and Braveheart, right? You're just like, man, I just rode across the world and I have all this freedom now. But at some point, I stopped mountain biking because well, let's just face it, it's hard to take a girl on a date on a mountain bike, like when you're in high school or something like that, right? Well, I get
Agreed.
on my bike, not happening. So you kind of like, it's not cool anymore. So like my wife's got me back into mountain biking and I found out like they're really expensive, so I learned that, but biking for a few years. And one day I get an email from a friend of mine and he says, hey, President Bush does this thing where he mountain bikes with veterans, down at his ranch. You should apply and go for it. So that sounds interesting. And I look, and he's like, and the qualifications are you've got to be a Purple Heart recipient and you've got to be an intermediate mountain biker. I'm like, well, I kind of consider myself intermediate. I'm certainly a Purple Heart recipient. Let me check this out. And I filled out my whole application. But one of the things they wanted in there was a letter from a professional mountain biker attesting to your ability to be like a rider. And I'm like, so I'm living in Missouri at the time, and we're in a field training exercise. I'm in the middle of Missouri. I wouldn't even know where to get this letter if I was in the middle of Los Angeles or or Dallas or something. Like pick your big city. So I sent everything off but that document. I'm like, well, probably not going to get selected because the one guy who's missing something, you're not getting in.
Yeah.
Somebody saw something in me, and a couple weeks later, after the application, I get a call. It says, "Hey, congratulations! You've been selected to come mountain bike with the president. Are you still interested?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm interested. Like this sounds pretty cool."
Yeah.
But no idea like what to expect, right? And what it's going to look like. I kind of viewed it as okay, it's going to be another one of those I call it pet events, right? Like you're just going to go and you're going to look way out there and oh, there's the president, wave to him, and like maybe it's not even him.
Yeah.
And it was the coolest experience that I've ever, done. Right. So this is 2000, I think 15, and I'm one of like 17 people, and I'm on the president's ranch, and I'm eating dinner with him in his dining room, and it was so cool, right? To just like to ride mountain bikes. So I go back and I do that, a couple of times, and then one day I get an email that says the president has painted you. Please sign this waiver. And I say that's weird. I don't know what that means, but the president's done it. He's a good guy. So like I'll sign it.
Yeah.
So I signed this waiver and I send it off. You may or may not know, but he became like he took up painting as kind of like his
Yeah. No, I heard that.
when he
Yeah.
came out of office, he took up painting. He started painting like he painted the landscape, he painted like his mother's dog, he painted his toes in the bathtub, like all these funny paintings, right? And world leaders and like one day somebody inspires him and he starts painting, he decides to paint veterans. So he has this big art exhibit in this book called The Portraits of Courage. And I've got the privilege of being one of 98 veterans that were, that are featured in that book. And I guess if you could see this here, me pointing,
Yeah.
that's my picture. He did, I did say to him, I said, hey, Mr. President, that you give me a little extra credit with the receding hairline there. Yeah. And his response was, he says, Flom, you have a face for radio. And I was like, come on, I think that's a compliment. So
Oh, that's
that's where
super.
that came about, right? And but it's
Yeah.
one of the cool things. So it's cool to go mountain bike with the president. It's pretty neat to be painted by a president or to sit in his dining room and have dinner with him and Mrs. Bush. But this also, like we talk about, like the importance of community. Like this really gave me what we call Team 43. So it's other riders, there's other golfers that are veterans, but even more so, like there's a neat community that comes like the volunteers and the people that get behind this and the relationships that I've built has been just fantastic. I'm still in touch with many of them today, and I look forward to seeing them when I go down. So I'll go ride with the president on over Veterans Day this coming year, and I look forward to seeing these
That's cool.
folks and just connecting with them again. Yeah.
Oh, that's definitely cool. The only part of President Bush I ever got to see was the back of his plane when you guys sent me there to guard it all the dang time when
I've
he
been
would
there
come to
too. I
Texas.
was there. And I told him on the first bike ride, I said, I said, you've ruined my Christmas 2 years in a row now.
Yep.
He said, what do you mean? And I said, well, for like first Christmas in 2002, I was guarding your plane up in Waco. And I said, and guess
Yep.
where I was Christmas of 2003? And he kind of chuckled. He's got like a great sense of humor.
Yeah.
You talk about somebody who like genuinely cares about people, right? And genuinely like
Mhm.
remembers them. And I just it's amazing to see like the sincerity and the passion in his eyes when you talk to him, and like just such a caring person. You can agree or disagree with his politics. It doesn't matter at this point. None of us have experience being president, but just a great guy.
No, I I get that. Yeah, it was extremely interesting, guarding his plane and having those last minute missions to go up there and stuff like that. It was. So, in your role, what do you actually do for the state of Pennsylvania?
I ask myself that every day. So I am the director of talent planning and development for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is my official title. So what does that mean? So I find
It means
myself,
you're a sergeant major.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know about that. Like nobody's interested in it, right? Like, I can't mention that. If I say I was a CSM to them, that's a customer service manager, like Lowe's or Home Depot. Nobody cares about that. But I've got the privilege, I would say, of leading a team of about 50, and like I find myself accidentally like somehow I stumbled it. It's in HR. I don't know how I wound up in HR. If you would have told me before you're going to be in HR when you retire from the army, I would have laughed because I didn't like those guys. But here I am, but I lead the learning and development for 80,000 state employees. So anything from like we've done onboarding training to mandatory training up through senior leader education and everything in between, niche programs, agency specific trainings. I lead that for the 80,000 employees that work for the state of Pennsylvania.
Do you find that your military background in training and stuff really helps you in that role?
Sometimes, and sometimes it like
Sometimes.
probably frustrates me in that role, right? Like, so, if I think about like put my military hat on, if I said, hey, I want you guys to get this done, people are going to get that done. And I remember, a specific instance like, hey, let's get this done. The next week, I'm like, so we should be getting this done. And 2 weeks later, I'm like, all right, like how about now?
No.
So some of that like authority that we're accustomed to in the military, just it doesn't work. So you have to kind of adapt your leadership. So I mean, we all are constantly adapting. Like I imagine, if I could somehow take a snapshot in time, my leadership positions throughout the army, are very different based off the environment I was in. Right, traditional, unit where it's just a bunch of soldiers. I mean, I don't mean just like in a pejorative sense, but it's full of soldiers. Like that's a little bit different leadership than you're in an organization like the Army War College, where it's really about leading with influence and not so much authority, right, to get things done and the relationship building. I think that's the same now, and you bring that to pick your organization, corporate world, state government, or whatever. You bring that in there, but like I mentioned earlier, but we have I think that learned ability over time is just kind of how do you bring that all together, right? Like how do you take that and use that to accomplish the greater organization's mission? And that's what I think I do is just the caring for people, the organizational culture. Because if you can establish culture and you can establish loyalty, like you can accomplish anything, right? With if people don't want to be there, the culture is terrible. They hate the organization. Like forget about leading change. And so I've really just been driving stability and culture and people engagement within my organization because they're the experts, not me. Like if you told me, hey, I want you to develop a training like an e-learning training right online, like I'd probably go like Google it, find a YouTube video. I'm like, hey, watch this, but I got people that are like they're professionals that are like that's what they do. They're instructional design specialists that know how to do that. They're program design specialists that can take learning objectives and put that into a program and build it a 10-month leadership development program. So I've got professionals and I like the secret sauce is knowing who to go to and who to talk to when when
No,
you need help and you got
definitely.
a question. And just the higher up you go, like the less of an expert you become, right? And you really
Yeah.
become that generalist, and it's your job to bring it all together and kind of in harmony.
No, I agree. I do feel that sometimes that the military brings us, things. It's always funny because I have to translate things to corporate, right? And so like you have a thing in your head, and so like one of the recent things is like we're trying to develop training for asset protection managers and like what are the goals? How do you and like it's funny because one of the tasks that we used to do back in the metal task list, right? Like you say that, they're like, what the heck's that? Like mission essential task list. Like, yay, you have like 10 things you could be doing, but we're only going to do 5. And then what are the collective tasks that support that? And then what are the individual tasks that support the collective task? And it sounds all crazy when you're in the military and you're like checking the box and you're making everything to it. But like in the civilian world, sometimes they don't know, they don't even know how to connect all that stuff together. And like that just gives you a leg ahead when you're talking about how we have to develop people,
Yeah.
because we're just so used to doing it. Just like training the people beneath you to take your job. That's a foreign concept in
Yeah.
a lot of corporate organizations, because everybody just tries to hold on to what they got.
Yeah, yeah. My experience has been there's a lot of like transactional leadership, right? Where I think like in the military, like when you're really looking to change culture at such a large scale, it's that transformational leadership style that's so important,
Uh-huh.
right? Like, and my team, yeah, you bring up a great point. My team hears it all the time. Like my job is to make them as competitive as possible to be my replacement when the day comes that I decided to depart this organization. Like I want them to do that, and I am all about delegating authority, right? Like I'm responsible, but I'm delegating that authority. I'm delegating that decision making. And I encourage them to do that too, and like do only what you can do. Like do only what you have to do, right? You think about it from a military police aspect. So we'll take a private, we'll train them, we'll give them some local training, and then we'll give them a gun, a pistol and a police car and a radio, and say, here you go, like have at it, right? Like so, it's like 18
Yeah.
year old private that's doing this. So you think of like delegating authority. They don't have time in some cases to wait to ask somebody a question and ask that sergeant. Like that could be the difference between life or death, theirs or somebody else's, right at a scene. So how do we power down that authority? And then in most of the instances, like what we do every day, like sometimes we're going to get it wrong, and that's okay. And I'm going to assume that risk as well and create that, like, did we fail because we just didn't do it? Well, that's a different conversation versus did we fail because we tried something new and it just didn't work out like the way we wanted to? That's okay.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think the military helped me do is fail and learn. Did a lot of that as a leader, failing and learning. And a lot of people are afraid to do that in the corporate world. And I try to empower my people. Like it's okay to fail. It's okay to get an Alpha Charlie every now and then,
Yeah.
right?
Once
Like
I'll
if we're
let you
doing
like
if
do it.
we're doing it every week, that might be an issue. But like if we're doing it on the quarter, like I can live with that. Yeah, just I think we when people don't make mistakes or they're so scared to make mistakes, that's where we stalemate and we don't get anything done. And we don't learn anything.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's why you get we've always done it that way, right? And that's what
Oh,
we've been doing I remember coming and somebody saying to me, well, we've done it that way for 32 years. Why would we want to change that? I'm like, right. And you had a typewriter and a rotary phone when you started doing it that way. Like, it's okay to change,
it's all right.
and let's just figure it out. And we're not going to get it right the first time, and we may not get it right the 10th time. That's okay. But we're gonna figure out we're gonna be better, and we're gonna learn every time.
Yeah, no, especially with technology, the way it's developing. Like I remember when I was in the 401st where we only had one computer that had email, right? And then like everybody's got a dang computer now, like it's it's ridiculous. Like used to be one email, freaking everything was, teletype or
Yeah. Well,
nobody
even
even
this is
has
a
fax
computer,
machines.
right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
we carry computers in our pockets now.
You still have your same phone number from Fort Hood, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, so do I.
I
So like I was like,
Yeah, no,
you
like
sent me your
5'4", there it is.
Yep, I was like, yeah, like that was really the first time I got a cell phone.
Yeah.
Was there. I was a sergeant, and then like I've just kept the same number the entire time.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
never changed that thing. That's
No.
crazy.
For what? And now
Yeah,
it's like I've moved carriers probably 3 times, and now you can take your number with you, so it doesn't even matter. And that's what's funny though about the military is like, you'll have a phone number from one duty station, license plate from another, a driver's license from a whole different one, right? And you're registered to vote in like a fifth state, right? And your
oh yeah.
record is even different than that.
Like it's. I'm still holding on to my Hawaii driver's license. I'm in Illinois. Like it's all crazy. My bike still has Hawaii license, so yeah, I'm probably supposed to get that,
You're
but
supposed to change that.
I think I am. I'll probably have to delete that out of this. But yeah.
Yeah.
So
To talk to you.
Let's see. I got some rapid fire questions for you. I want you to answer them. So as we get near here, whiskey, neat or on the rocks?
On the rocks. But I'm going to say it depends, right? So if I enjoy it, if it's a lower proof, I'm good. Like I'm drinking neat now, right? Because on the rocks, I would have an ice machine up here with me the way I'm pouring. But I like on the rocks because I like the ice and now it kind of opens it up a little bit, right? So I'm on the rocks.
All right. All right. Favorite leadership book of all times?
That's a great question. I got it right here. I don't know if you can see that. Unreasonable Hospitality.
Unreasonable. What's it about?
So Will Guidara, have you ever seen the show? It's on Hulu. It's called The Bear.
I have seen the Bear.
There's a
Yeah.
show called The Bear. It's about a chef, and it's all kind of drama.
Yep. Yeah. My brother-in-law is a chef. He made me sit there and watch it.
It's even like in Chicago or something is where it takes place.
Yeah, it is in Chicago. Yep. Yeah.
Chicago there. But to me, there's so many things, and that's really about the restaurant business. And he's a chef, but there's so many points that he talks about in there, and one of them is it's not what you do for people, it's how you make them feel, right? Like, so if you think about that from a leadership lesson, like, so there's all kinds of like I call them like pop-up leadership books. Like you want to, like you're going to walk by it in the airport and like, oh, I'm going on a 2-hour flight. I'll read this 700-page leadership book and I'll be a great leader by the time I land, and a lot of them are like, all right, uninspiring, not exciting. This one just has so many lessons and it kind of requires you to think. And I gave you a bunch, but that's a pretty exciting one right there.
That's nice. Best advice you ever received?
Best advice I ever received. Find your passion and be your best.
I like it.
And it's not, yeah, like, and I've passed that on to my daughter too. Like if she figures out what she wants to do in life, I said, if you want to be a doctor, great. Lawyer, great. Want to work in a restaurant? Great. We need that too. Want to be, work in a grocery store? Okay, good. Also great. Like we need that, but go be your best. And that doesn't mean be the best, right? But like be your best and give 100% every day, contribute to society and be a kind person.
No, that's a good one too. Way to pass it down to your kid, man. What's one Army habit you can't shake?
I still wake up at 4 a.m. Yeah. I still wake up. That's my time. That's like my wife and I, we get up at 4, we sit and have coffee together. She likes to talk. I don't. I'm like we have this rule, like my coffee cup doesn't talk to me, nor should you until I have my first cup, right? And then we go work out so like I think just the greater theme is a routine, right? So then I get up and I go to the gym, and I don't know, sometimes I do more than others, but it's about just having that routine, and I can't shake that.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, no, I still get up. It's terrible right now because like I get up at 5, but like I work all the way to the West Coast, so they're like 2 hours behind. So when they get up at 5, it's still 7. I'm still working. It's crazy. But
I don't have that problem.
You don't. They're all in Pennsylvania, so that's a good problem not to have.
And I still want to talk like Army lingo sometimes, right? Like trying to there's just verbiage we use, and it's what's fascinating to me is in the leadership world is the amount of military analogies that are used like out there. People have no idea, right? So they're like, we're going to lift and shift. I'm like, well, you know what that means? Like that's like you're lifting fires and you're shifting them, right? Like or it's like navigating a minefield. I'm like, I've done that.
Yeah.
You don't want it. Like, it's not fun.
You don't want to do it. Like, that's not fun at all.
It sounds, right? And I'll be like, okay, what's our battle rhythm? And then I'm like, does that make sense? And sometimes, I'd say like the last thing that I haven't is just very like with my emails. Like, I don't, it's funny. Like people like, I'm sure you get it too. Hi, Starsky. Hope your day is going well. Say what you want to say. Like just tell me what you want to say. And then I remember one time I closed out an email. I was like giving an update to something and I said MTF, more to follow. But the person came back and said, all right, I tried Googling that. Like, is that medical treatment facility? Like what do you say? Like, okay, you got me.
You got me.
So some of that we're still like comfortable. We speak a different language in the Army.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'll tell people check all the time. Like that's always I was like check, and like people email me back. They'll email me back. Like they'll be try to be funny, and they'll be like check, and I'll be like, it's not even in the right emphasis. Like you're. I don't know what you're doing.
Right.
Like, like
don't do that again.
Stop while you're ahead. All right. So that's super funny. If you have to give a keynote speak, right? What is your walk-on song? You can choose any song.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be politically correct, anything like that. It's your walk-on song.
Yeah.
You're the Steve Coates, Steve Austin, the Undertaker, whatever it is. What's that walk-on
Yep.
song?
Y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here. That's where I'm at. Yep. I don't even know what the name of that song is, but that's what I'm going with.
I don't know, but we might copyright infringement. I'm gonna get.
We're not playing it. It's okay.
No,
I
I know.
don't think
I'm
I
just
did it
saying.
in any similar fashion to the original artist.
No, I would agree. I would agree. Singing was never your trait.
That's why I was in the army.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. So was I. Well, most underrated trait in a leader.
Underrated trait I think empathy, right? And I think it's overused, under exercised, right? Like, so people, like, a lot of people like to say, I'm an empathetic leader, and they don't even know what that means. So I think, like, underrated and really appreciating the true value in practice is just being an empathetic person to people, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with you because I will say that one of the bad traits I have out of the military at times is not being empathetic. And so, like, because it's like mission first,
Yep.
right? And so, like, I love my wife as much as, and sometimes, like, I'll tell my wife about it, and like, she'll be like, well, did you check on how they were? Or like,
Yeah.
they didn't get done what I wanted to get done. What?
Yeah.
All right, bro. How's your day going? Like, I'll have to go back.
Yeah.
I'll have to circle back and be
How are
like,
you feeling?
how are you feeling? Like, is everything going good? Because like I'm obviously being not an empathetic leader. So like, yeah, that's the one thing I love about my wife is that she makes me more empathetic.
Yeah. Yeah. And really, to
It
me,
keeps my check and balance.
yeah, and I think that comes down to, like, putting things in perspective, like what's important, what's urgent, what's an emergency, and what's just routine stuff, right? And one of the things I look back, like, at our time, in combat, and is that really what it, like, how I think that really contributed to my leadership style. Like, if you would have looked at me like as a leader, like, pre-combat days, I was an a-hole, right? Like, I wasn't probably not a nice person. Like, I was.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, like, you don't need to
I'll
agree.
agree.
I'm stating it's my story. But like, but like, if you think about, like, it just puts in perspective. Like, okay, did anybody die today? The answer is no. Did we cause some national crisis? If the answer is no, like, we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna be okay. And just like, and I remind my team all the time, like, let's keep the small things small. Like, it'll be okay. But I realize that's about perspective, and the experiences that we've had in mine are like, all right, we got it wrong. We'll do better next time. We'll learn from it.
No, yeah. No, I 100% agree with you on that because as being in the security and asset protection business myself, everybody thinks that every event is the end of the world, and I'm like, is is anybody dead? No. All right. Is everything's going to be okay? And everybody's in such a rush to report up or tell the next level, and like some of the great things that I got out of the military training to go is slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? Like, no use getting everybody up in the C suite all riled up about something that is not even factual.
Right.
Like, let's get all the facts, build that, and then give it to them. So definitely, I agree with you on that. Here, my last one here for you. Biggest misconception about learning and development. Since you do learning and development, that's
The biggest misconception about learning and development is that we can solve your problems. So you can't outsource leadership. You can't, learning and development is really just a small component of the whole life cycle of an employee's development, right? And so if you call me and you're already solutioning, I'm going to have a conversation with you and say, okay, what is it you want to accomplish? Like, let's talk about that, because I get calls all the time, like, I need X or I need this program. Well, why do you need that? Well, because my employees aren't communicating with each other very well. So I want to give them, like I want to develop them to be better communicators. So I'm like, okay, is that something a class is going to solve? Or is that something you need to solve, right? As that leader. So, like, you can't, so I tell people all the time, like, an organization's learning and development, leadership development culture is only as good as the leader of that organization's strategy. Can't outsource it.
yeah. And if you're wanting to communicate better, my question would be: is how are you communicating? Because most subordinates mimic their leadership.
That's right. Absolutely.
Right. So like I don't try to I mimic my leaders, like how they want stuff and stuff. So like if they're having a poor thing, how are you doing it? Like
Yeah.
you're wanting something that you're not necessarily providing also. So
Absolutely. So, so my role is to like, let's get inside that culture, right? Like, let's change
yeah,
systems. Like, a one-time, contact incident isn't going to help, right? To put people in a room and say like, okay, we're going to sit here and we're going to talk until you guys get along. And they're probably going to hate each other and they're going to hate me by the end of the session, right? So like let's incorporate that and figure out what's going on. And sometimes it's just some coaching from that leadership level. Like, this is what I recommend you do within your organization, whether it's communication, employee engagement, or like whatever it is, right? Like it starts with the leader. You can't outsource that. So that's my biggest misconception. I deal with it all the time.
gotcha. So if you had to leave us with your final parting words and your words of wisdom out there in this great abyss to my subscribers and fans and all that, what is your last silhouette? What is your silhouette, whatever? I don't know. I'm not an English major either.
Yeah. I'd say it's be kind to one another and be curious to learn about one another, right? So, like I said, we're not going to talk politics, and we talked about that before we came in, but
Yeah.
we are in a divisive world. It's that's a fact. How can we come together? And that's through just being curious about learning and finding and establishing there's more that brings us is like each other, that there's more that brings us together than there is that separates us. Let's find that common ground and come together, and we'd be a much better world for that.
No, I agree with you, Brian, and I'd like to thank you for taking the time to speak with me about this and everything, and your trials and tribulations, and transition and all that. I think that it'll help a lot of people out there getting this out there, and so cheers to you and Monica. I wish you guys happiness.
Yeah, yeah. This was a blast, and to all your subscribers, all four of them, or however many you have out there.
Thanks, bro. Thanks.
No, like I'm sure you're trending, right? You're out there.
Yeah.
You are trending. If I can be an assistance, like I'm on LinkedIn, I'll respond. Maybe not that day, but if I can help, you're trying to navigate something, you just want to talk about it, reach out to me and we'll find time.
Brian, I always say leadership is distilled, wisdom is shared, and stories are worth savoring. And man, you just served up all three like a seasoned pro. We may have swapped boots for brogues, but our mission is still clear. Lead with honor, build with humility, and leave every team better than we found it. Your presence in Portraits of Courage isn't just a recognition of your past service. It's a reflection on how you continue to lead, inspire, and serve with purpose. The portraits may hang in a galley, but the impact you're making, it lives in a classroom, a boardroom, and every life you help shape. If this conversation hits home for you, don't just nod along. Share it, rate it, and drop us a comment. Hey, and even subscribe if you haven't already. Next time, keep leading, keep sipping, and never stop learning.